Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the series on the 1985 Desert Red 300 CD. In the last couple of videos, you saw all the undercarriage and suspension being finished. Now in this video, we're going to go ahead and bleed the brake system. Put in fresh brake fluid. I'm also going to fill the differential because you saw me replace the axles in the last video. And then we're going to move to overhauling the air conditioner system. So let's go ahead and get started. Now also in the last video, we redid all the rear suspension, and I am showing now how we also refinished the wheel wells in the original Desert Red. Now here's what's important, guys. You see the gray colored primer that Mercedes would apply on the rocker panels? It's very important when you do this. Mercedes would take their paint guns and they would come around the corner and whip the paint gun right there, so that gray primer would come over into the wheel well. So if you want these to look, 100% factory original when you refinish your wheel well, make sure you leave the primer right there and do not paint over that, because that's how they came from the factory. Let's go take a look at the other side. You can see it looks very nice up in here, all refinished. And you can see right there, see where the primer, I left it. I did not paint over that primer, because like I said, with the paint gun, they'll come around here and they whipped it around the corner and that primer stays right there. Just wanted to show you guys that. Let's go ahead and get the car up in the air, and we're going to pump in some 80W90 gear oil for the differential, and then we're going to bleed the brake system. All right, guys, the diff fluid, you don't put anything fancy in there. This is just Napa 80W90, dinosaur gear oil. You don't have to go crazy with any synthetic or special weights. It just takes the old school 80W90 gear oil, and you want to fill it until it comes out of the fill hole. So this takes a minute, guys, so I'm going to start the filling process, and as soon as it starts to come out, we'll be back in a second. All right, there you go. See how it's starting to come out and run down the side? That's when it's full, guys. And you just put your cap back in. Then we'll get a rag and we'll clean up our mess here, and now we'll move over to the brake system. All right, let's tighten our plug back down and we'll go bleed the brakes. Hey Jefferson, are you ready to bleed some brakes? Oh, that feels good, yeah. All right, so guys, what we have here, you can see I have just a little cup under. You can see there's one back there under the calipers, and the way we want to start bleeding the system, I've got it topped off here. All the way up with fresh brake fluid, and we're going to crack these bleeders and just let gravity do its thing, and that'll fill up our calipers. And then once that's done, we'll tighten them all back up and we'll actually do a pressure bleed. All right, anytime you're doing a brake bleeding operation, you always want to start with the passenger rear, and then we'll move to the driver rear, then passenger front, then driver front. Really, that's only when you're doing a pressure bleed. You want to start farthest away from the master cylinder. All right, so we have that bleeder cracked loose, and gravity will start doing its work here in a minute. And we're going to go ahead and take the cap off of our reservoir so it can, it's not under any pressure and it can bleed freely. All right, you can already see back here, the rear calipers, see it dripping? And that's going to allow the caliper to fill up, and air is going to push the air out. There you go, see this one's dripping over here into our cups. And you notice the bleeders are on top of the caliper, and the hose back here is down low. So that means the fluid will come in, fill up the caliper, and push out the air. That's why your bleeder's on the top and your hose is on the bottom. And you can see the front of the reservoir has already dropped. The front is for the rear brakes and the rear is for the front brakes. So we'll just go ahead and keep that topped off, and it fills up the back side first, and then that comes over and flows into the front side. There it goes. and it's going to fill up that front reservoir. Okay, now the front brakes are bigger, so it always takes a little bit longer to get the air out. You can see it's dripping right there down into our cup. So we'll let that drip for a little while, get the rest of the air out, and then we're going to use the pressure bleeder. All right, so while that's gravity bleeding, I'm going to go ahead and remove this headlight bezel, and there's just little screw-off caps. You can see one right down there, and they look like that, but you screw those off the back because we want to get access right there. That's our AC receiver dryer. See it right there? Because that's one of the items of the AC system we want to replace. You can get these caps off and also have the air cleaner removed because we're going to, of course, be taking apart all the top of the engine in later videos and doing a valve adjustment and zinc plating and all that stuff. All right, now that I have that off, we want to get access to that receiver dryer, and you can remove the headlight bezel. I'll just set that guy over here. And now we actually want to remove this headlight assembly, and that allows us easy access to the receiver dryer. All right, removing the headlight is pretty simple. There's two screws over here. Take these two out. There's one there and one there. So we'll get that one out. And then right there at the bottom. Okay. And now we just want to disconnect the plug from the back. There we go. Now we can get access to the old original receiver dryer. Okay, perfect timing. Literally, the second I got that headlight out, we started getting dripping here from the passenger side caliper. So we have successfully gravity bled these. Now let's go ahead and get the pressure bleeder connected. Let me show you guys how that works. Okay, here is my motive power bleeder, and I've got it connected to the reservoir, and we just want to pump this up to about 10 psi and pressurize the system. And you don't really want to go much more than 10 psi, guys, because you don't want to mess up any seals in the master cylinder or master reservoir there. All right, so that is 10 psi. All right, good. So like I said, we want to start bleeding at the rear caliper. Let me show you how this works. All right, now we're up here on the driver's side, and let's check this one. See if we can get some bubbles here. Oh yeah, see all those? There's some fresh fluid coming through. Good. All right, guys, so now I have to repeat that process. Tighten it back up. All right, so now I'm gonna take the pressure bleeder off, refill it with fluid, repeat that process a couple times, and we'll be done bleeding the brake system, and then we will move to the AC. All right, we have our AC equipment connected, and over here we have all our new parts. Let's see, here's our original DuPont R12 Freon. That's the good stuff, and it takes 3 cans. The way we know that is on the core support. Mercedes put a sticker, and they say for the 123 chassis, it takes 2.9 pounds. Now, 3 cans is a little over 2.6 pounds, and guys, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to get like the 0.3 extra in there. 3 cans works absolutely perfect. Okay, and here we have the AC compressor, and we have our temperature and pressure switch. Now, here is ester oil. I like to use ester oil to fill the system back with the oil. The oil required for R134 is actually PAG oil, which doesn't mix with R12. However, ester oil is compatible with both. That's why I like to use that. And then we have a bunch of extra O-rings here and seals to replace as needed. So what we want to do now, I want to, we have a vacuum pump right here, and I'm going to go ahead and hook up the existing system to a vacuum pump, and I want to put it under a vacuum just to see if there's any leaks in the existing system. And now we're replacing the seals on the compressor and the seals on the receiver dryer. I'm just curious to see if the existing system has any leaks. So we'll put it under vacuum, and then we'll let it set for several hours and see if it holds a vacuum. And if it holds a vacuum, then there's not a leak in the system. All right, I know this may be hard to see on camera here. Turn on my light. So we can see right there, it goes down to negative 30 inches of mercury. That's your vacuum measurement. Same over here. So we want to suck this down. They usually get to like negative 28, negative 29. And then we want to close off the system and see if that holds. So right now, we have both valves open. You can see there's our low pressure and our high pressure is down there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. Let's watch our gauges. All right. You can see it's going to start sucking down. So we're going to let that run for a second and suck that all the way down to negative 30. All right, you can see we're like right at like negative 28 or so inches of mercury. And I'm going to let it hold like that for several hours, and we'll see if it drops down any. All right, guys, it's been a couple of hours, and our gauges are still holding. Oh, sorry. Here we go. They're still holding, so we don't have a leak in the existing system. Anyway, what we want to do now is let's remove this old receiver dryer. And sorry, I forgot to have that out with the kit. There's our new receiver dryer and new compressor. So let's get the old one out of here and the old compressor out of here. All right, guys, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to crack our line to the, this one goes up to the condenser in the front, and this one goes back inside the car. And these are just 19 millimeter. Now, it's under vacuum right now because I had the vacuum pump, so we'll probably hear a vacuum suction sound once I crack these loose. Yep. Did you hear it? Now, I do see that someone did replace an O-ring because originally they had black O-rings, and I can see that one's very old, so they must have replaced that years ago. Whoops. But we're replacing all these O-rings in here. And let's get this one off of here. Yeah, that one's on there kind of snug. Okay, I see this O-ring was replaced on here too at some point. But yeah, these are definitely old because I can see they're deformed a little bit. Anyway, like I said, we're replacing that stuff. Now, the next thing we want to do is unplug our switches. And we have a switch here. There we go. And unplug the switch here. There we go. And then there's another switch here. We'll unplug that. Okay, now we need to go ahead and unscrew. I think there are 8 millimeter sheet metal screws that hold it in there. All right, there's one of them. And these are just little 8 millimeter sheet metal screws. There we go. And then this guy will just lift right out of here. There we go. And that's the that's an old one. Okay, here's the old receiver dryer. Here's our new one. And we're going to, let's see, we're going to put on, we're going to pop this cap off and this cap off and put in our pressure switch and temp switch. And we'll just set this one aside. We don't want to use that one anymore. That's a 14 millimeter cap. So we'll take our cap off and we're going to install this switch. And what I like to do, you can see there's already an O-ring right there. And I like to just put little bit of oil. Just lubricate that O-ring just a little bit. That way it doesn't break when we're putting it in there. There we go. Now this is these switches, I think this is off the 190 or the 124 chassis, and I learned from an old mechanic, one of my mentors years ago, that if you use this switch, it allows the auxiliary fan on the front of the car to kick on a little sooner and, you know, cool the AC system better. You can notice the original switches, they looked a little different. They looked like that. But these red ones allow that fan to kick on sooner and make the system work better. And we'll tighten that down. I think it's a 14. Yeah. There we go. And then we'll take this cap off. And we're going to put in, one's the temperature, one's the pressure. Always get them mixed up. And we'll just lubricate our O-ring a little bit. There we go. Screw that guy in there. All right, there we go. Now we can take off, actually before I take the caps off here, these are the two O-rings that actually were removed from the vehicle. And I have another O-ring pack right here. We'll just dump those guys out. And I think that's one right there. We also have this size. That one's a little too big. Let's check this one. Yeah, that's the same size. That one will work well. These two green ones right here. All right, so let's go put these back on the car. And before I install them, I just go ahead and smear them with a little oil. That way they don't bind when I'm installing them. All right, and these just install back on our lines here. There's one. There's the other. All right, we're gonna take off our protective caps here. And I'm gonna wipe this down a little bit because you can see there's some oil that I got on here, and that oil has a dye in it, so I don't want to have a false dye detection. All right, I wiped that guy off pretty good. And let's turn it around this way. And this one is going to connect right there. And we'll tighten them down after we actually, there we go, put that one right there. Actually, after we have this mounted. All right. There we go. Now let me get our little 8mm mounting screws. All right, now let's connect our switches. These two switches here, or these plugs right here, go to this switch, right there like that. And these right here go to these blade connectors. And sometimes you have to slice the little covering on the blade connector to get it to fit in there, especially for this one. So let me go ahead and slice that little covering. All right, there we go. All you do, take a razor blade, slice the plastic covering there. There you go. And then that can kind of peel out of the way, and our other connector can go in there. There we go. There we go, perfect. All right, guys, that's all installed. Now I just need to torque down our fittings. And guys, you don't have to crank these down. They were on there really tight before. And you actually don't have to make them that tight. The O-ring does the sealing. Now we'll tighten this one. All right, there we go. That's done. Now let's go do the compressor. All right, we're over here on the driver's side of the car. And if you look down here, right there is the adjustment nut for our AC compressor. So first thing we're going to do is loosen that adjustment nut. That way there's no tension. Here we go. We've got that loose. I'm going to keep going a little more. All right, there we go. Now that when we loosen the mounting bolts on the back, it'll allow us to get slack in the belt and get that compressor off. All right, guys, it's kind of hard to record how you get the compressor out, but first we have, this is a 13mm bolt, and that's like a retaining bracket that helps hold the AC manifold to the back of the compressor. And that's a 15mm bolt that holds the manifold to the compressor, so we'll undo those. Now up here, you have a 19mm. Now this is a bolt that goes all the way through and into the back of the compressor, and it's very important you see this, guys. That's a spacer. You have to keep that spacer. Now there's another one. Let's see, there's another 19mm mounting bracket that goes into the compressor right here. That is a spacer. You got to make sure you put those spacers back. And then the last one, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it, is right up in there. I'm touching it with my finger. You can't even see it. So there's 3 bolts on the back. So let me go ahead and get those out. All right, I've pretty much gotten them all loose so I can remove them by hand. So here's your 13mm with your washer, and then our 15mm comes out of the back of the manifold. And then here's the big one with the spacer. And I bet you I can get the spacer to fall out here. Give me a second. I'm going to remove that. All right, there it is. And if I pry a little bit, there it comes. I pulled this out of the back of the compressor. This goes on the back side. This side screws into the compressor, but there's a spacer like that. And then this screws into the compressor, and the mounting bracket is there. So you kind of, you got to get like a wrench where the head can swivel so you can get back there on that one. And then we got the one up top. That one's loose. And this compressor should fall out any second. All right. It's going to fall out on me any second. Oh, I forgot. We definitely want to unplug the power from the compressor. There we go. I just unplugged that. All right, here it goes, guys. It's going to fall out any second. There it goes. All right. And we'll get our belt off of here. Come on. Oh, there we go. All right. And here we go. There's our AC manifold. You can see how clean it is in there because this compressor was not damaged. Didn't blow any junk back in there. So we don't need to clean anything out up here. And here's our compressor. I mean, this thing was still working, but that is an old one. That's an old Harrison that used the old O-rings back here. All right, let's go ahead and put this up here and compare it to our new one. There we go. All right, let's go ahead, get this one prepped and get it on the car. All right, here's our new compressor. And what we want to do, we want to empty out the oil that's in it, and measure how much that is. It's usually about 2 ounces or so. And then we're going to add that amount of oil back in after we install it. So we're going to take off this cap here, and this usually goes flying across the room because it is under pressure. We'll see here. All right, there we go. I broke the seal without it shooting across the room. All right, now let's get this oil out of here and measure how much comes out. Let's go ahead and pour out this oil. And it's always right at 2 ounces, guys. Right there. Exactly 2 ounces. So that's how much oil we're going to add. Now, we didn't drain out the rest of the system because it's already R12. So we don't have to flush any of the old R12 or old oil out of there because we're not converting to R134. So instead of refilling the system with, the recommended 6 ounces, that's if you start with an empty system. So we're just going to add back in a total of 2 ounces of oil. All right, in the instructions for the compressors, they say they want you to rotate the compressor about 10 times prior to installing it back on the car. And that makes sure our clutches are spinning correctly, or the clutch is engaging correctly. All right, once the tool is in there, we can then rotate the compressor. And it wants us to do it about 10 times. All right, there we go. She's spinning very good and freely, and that clutch feels good. Okay, now let's go get this guy back on the car. All right, let's see if I can get this on here. Now, guys, this is a new belt, so we don't need to replace the belt. That has already been done. So let's go up here. We're gonna stick this compressor around here. Damn, that thing's heavy. All right, come here, belt. All right, belt is on. All right, let's put that bolt back in there. Okay. So we got one bolt that's holding it there. Now, guys, I need to go put the rest of the bolts in and then put our compressor seals in. So I'll come back when I get to the point of installing the seals. All right, guys, the compressor comes with 4 seals. There's 2 red ones. You throw those away. Don't ever use those. You use the green one and the gold one. Now, before I put those on there, I like to go ahead, put a little compressor oil on them. Just lube them up a little bit. All right, this one's easy to get on. This one can be tough. Let's go get the seals on. All right, guys, we have our seals here. Now, the green seal, there we go. Our green seal goes over here towards the driver's side. You can't put it in another way. It only goes one way. All right. These are tricky to get up in there. All right. Now, the gold seal, here, I've got to hold this bolt in my mouth. The gold seal goes right over here. The gold seal goes right over here. Okay, got it in place. I'm going to try to tighten our manifold down, and that'll hold the seal in there. All right, we got them. They're both in there. All right. Now I need to tighten down all these bolts and then snug up the back of our manifold and then put our mounting bracket retaining bolt back through there. And you definitely don't want to forget your power plug, which plugs in right there. Oh, actually it goes this way. There we go. Here's the compressor power plug. Good. All right, now we just want to snug up all the bolts, but don't make them tight, because now we need to go back up top and reset our 10mm adjustment nut, which gives us belt tension. And then once we get that adjusted, we can tighten all these down. And guys, you have to make these pretty tight. If they're loose or your belt gets a little and your belt is not tight enough, it'll sound like marbles in a tin can. That's what your compressor will sound like, because this compressor needs a lot of tension on the front pulley. All right, guys, we're back here on the top side, and our compressor is down underneath there. Remember that bolt, the adjustment bolt? I need to go ahead and tighten this back down. All right. Now we can go snug up the bolts underneath and check our belt tension. All right, guys, we're on the home stretch. I am tightening the last bolt. Now, once this is tightened, it's going to pull that compressor all the way in, and we need to check our belt tension. All right, there we go. Now, right here, we can check our belt tension. And that's good. That's good and tight. You want those compressor belts to be pretty snug, or else you'll get rattling in that compressor. And there we go, guys. There's the new compressor installation. Okay, guys, now that we got the new compressor with new compressor seals and the new receiver dryer with new switch seals and input and output seals, we want to now put this under vacuum again. So let me go ahead and open up our lines. And we're going to let it hold vacuum overnight. So I'll run it for like 30 or 45 minutes, get it nice and sucked down under vacuum. And then we're going to run it overnight. And, you know, any humidity or moisture will be taken out of the system because water boils under a vacuum. So let's let that run for a minute. We'll let it suck down, and then we'll come back, check our gauges, and then shut it off, and we'll come back in the morning and see, make sure it held a nice vacuum. Okay, the vacuum pump has been running for an hour. I just shut it off and I closed my gauges. And let's see here, we're right at, it's in between, oops, sorry. It's like a couple of, it's like the tick right below -30. See, if I hold it like that, you can see that tick mark. If I hold over here, see the -30. And it's almost on that tick. It's like between those two tick marks. All right, I'm gonna remember that, and we'll come back tomorrow. Let it sit overnight, and let's see if we've held vacuum. All right, guys, it's the next morning. It's been about 12 hours since we put the car under vacuum with the new seals, compressor, and receiver dryer and switches. And let's see if it held vacuum. Boom, look at that. Perfect. We have no leaks in the system. I love that. I hate having to fix leaks. Anyway, this is good. So now we are going to recharge the system. We're going to put in our ester oil and our original DuPont R12. Okay, guys, before we start pumping in the R12, you can see I've got a pot. This is just hot tap water. And what this is for, when you start putting in the R12, you can put it in the hot water as it's going in, and it helps it to evaporate a little better, a little quicker. One of my old mentor mechanics taught me that. Now what we're going to do here, this is the oil injector. And we're going to screw this down. It has graduated marks here that show me how much we're putting in. And let's see, I don't know if you guys can see those marks. Anyway, it tells me, like, there you go, 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce. We want to put in 2 ounces back into the compressor. And fill it up with our oil. There we go. Now what I like to do, I like to put in 1 can of R12 first, and then I like to put the oil in second. So I'll just have this ready. And we're going to go ahead and tap our R12 can here. This is a can tap. And then we're going to crank up the car and put the AC on high, and then go ahead and put our R12 into the system. All right. Let me go ahead and fire up the car and let's get started. All right, so this first can, we'll go ahead and connect it here. We don't need the hot water until probably the second or third can. All right, now we're going to purge any air out of the line here. There we go. And let's go ahead and start putting it in. There it goes. I know you guys can't see this, but I have a sight glass right here that I can see the R12 going into the system. And the first can always goes real quick, and we want to listen to until we hear the compressor kick on. There it goes. Did you hear the compressor kick on? Alright, now we're going to go ahead and start putting in our oil. And I want to go ahead and purge the air out of the line here. Alright, there we go. I'll open this back up. And we'll just go ahead and spin our cylinder until the oil all goes in. There we go, we got all our oil in. Go ahead and close our valve and disconnect the oil. Let's put in the rest of our R12. There we go, that's R12. And we'll open up the system. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. See the R12 bubbling through there? There's our sight glass, so I know that it's going in. And I can see our pressures are starting, our readings are starting to come up correctly. While that's charging, let me get a thermometer. And we're going to go ahead and put the thermometer in our AC vent so we can start measuring our temperatures. Oh yeah, it's already cold, guys. All right, we want to be down around that green mark right there. See that green mark? That's 40 degrees. And typically with R12, you drop down to probably around 39 degrees. So we're gonna look how fast it's dropping. All right, we'll come back and check that in a second. Okay, while that last can is going in, let's go check our temperatures. Oh yeah, there we go, guys. We're down to like 42 degrees, and that's just going to keep dropping a few more degrees, about 3 or 4 more degrees, and that's where it should be. Now also, there is a sight glass right there, and you see the bubbles going by there. When the bubbles are no longer there, that means the system is charged. Now you can use that sight glass on an R12 system. You can't do it that way on an R134 system. So we're going to check that sight glass in a minute. This can is almost done. All right, we just finished our third can. I've got it disconnected. I just grabbed one more can, guys. This can looks a little different, but it's all the same stuff. You see dichloro, difluoromethane, same thing. Dichloro, difluoromethane. It's just a different manufacturer, but these are both R12. I'm going to pump in a little bit more to get it where I like it. And shut off the car and disconnect my R12, and then we're going to go check our temperature readings. All right, let's make sure everything's closed. Let's go see where we're at. I already see the windows fogging up in here. Check out the condensation. It is cold in here. Let me check the center vents. Oh, wow. All right, we are right at 40 degrees. Yeah, right on the mark. Right there on the green. And when you drive it, it'll probably drop another degree or so. But that is outstanding, ice cold R12 air conditioner. Yeah, that was ice cold. Look at all the condensation that's appearing on the AC lines. Ice cold air conditioner. All right, last thing I want to do here is put the caps back on our R12 fittings here. There we go. And I got to put the one down there under the car. All right, guys, mission accomplished. R12 AC system is ice cold and working perfectly. So stay tuned for more videos on this car. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.